Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I really appreciate those of you that are taking the time to listen and to reach out to me and comment, or to comment through the website or Facebook. It's really neat with the podcast to get feedback. The thing about the very nature of a podcast, you kind of feel like you're broadcasting into the abyss, like it's Radio America here trying to reach out and broadcast your message across whatever. So you don't get a lot of feedback that way, but I appreciate those of you that communicate and give me encouragement. It's fun to get that feedback, and it really helps bolster my resolve to keep going and keep doing interviews. Speaking of which, I apologize for missing. I know I had kind of teased out that I was planning on doing a podcast every week through the end of the year, and we obviously missed last week. The reason behind that is just quite simple. Last week was just absolutely crazy. So the thing with my marketing job, my small business that I have, was really ramped up. I was trying to help a client get a grant written, and that is not my strong suit. I do not like doing that, but that really took up a lot of my time. But I got that out of the way and back on a regular schedule. So I've got another great interview for you. Today I'm talking with Scott Newman, who is in Oklahoma, and he's new. He's fairly new into pastured pigs. And I enjoy having these conversations with guests that are new. It's kind of fun to see the angles that they're going for, strategies that they have, maybe challenges they've already encountered. So I think y'all enjoy this conversation, and I appreciate what Scott's doing here. Scott is a veteran, and he's looking at his pig operation to be an opportunity to turn that into training for other vets. And I love this whole initiative, this trend that seems to be forming with getting vets involved in agriculture. And my goodness, what a great fit if there ever was one. These young men and women coming out of the military, experience training. They have usually have great resolve, have great ambition, know how to do a hard day's work. So it just makes sense that a good segue into farming would be a good play there. So I'll jump right into the interview with Scott, and then we'll go over some additional information on the back of the interview. Today we're speaking with Scott Newman, and he is in Oklahoma and just actually starting his farm, pig farm. And he right now he doesn't have a specific name for his farm, but his social media is tied to Angry Vet Ag, which I love that. So we're going to jump right in here and talk with Scott. Good morning, Scott. How are you today?
Good morning. How are you?
All right, doing well. So Oklahoma right now, how is it weather-wise this time of year for Oklahoma?
It's cold and rainy.
Cold and rainy, yeah. Sounds like West Virginia.
Sporadic. Oklahoma weather is always sporadic. And we had an ice storm run through here about a couple weeks ago.
That's amazing. Yeah. You think, to me, when I think of Oklahoma being obviously right there at Texas, I think, well, that's southern. That you shouldn't be dealing with that kind of weather this time of year. But I guess with the plains and the way everything just comes plunging down out of the north, you guys get all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing normal about the weather here. It's always extreme.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's why they saved it to last to become a state, and closest to last. All right. Well, enough about geography and weather. So let's get and talk about. You have an interesting perspective, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast when we were talking offline, back and forth on email. That you kind of felt that, well, I'm just getting started. I'm not sure I have anything to add, but I like having conversations with individuals that are just getting started, so we can kind of see, game plan, look under the hood, see what you're thinking, and then what challenges and expectations you have. So it's something I enjoy talking with people about, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast to share that conversation with me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be on it. I've been listening to you for a while. I think I'm caught up on all your episodes now.
All right. Well, you listen to me more than my wife does then, so good for you. All right. let's talk about your setup right now in Oklahoma. What? Give me a 40,000 foot elevation discussion of your setup and what you're working toward.
So we moved on to 9 acres in July, and it was previously they had horses on it. So everything was just 3-strand barbed wire, and the horses had dug up the ground and mashed into the hard clay. They were lucky enough that the people who owned it before us had put a 6-foot no-climb fence around the yard, basically. So we started out. I wanted to get into homesteading a little bit, and I was listening to the Homestead Journey podcast a lot. And he talked about pigs so much, I got kind of interested in them. And then so I transferred over to the Pastured Pig podcast and started listening there. And then the next thing was that I wanted to do heritage breeds. So I started looking at different ones of those and stumbled across Carl Blake in one of the Pastured Pig Facebook pages, and we had a long chat about kind of where my head was at. And then I decided to get a Michon boar from him, and I bought him pretty young, and then just kept him like a dog in the yard because I wanted him to be my friend and my buddy. And then picked up 2 Berkshire gilts from Bainsley's Berkshires out of Arkansas. And so we have 3 pigs now, and I just moved them onto a second pasture, not in the yard. I have 2 goats and 6 chickens right now.
All right. So cool. So I like this. The circle of life and the social network is revealing itself pretty well in this story. So you talked about Brian Wells. We actually have an interview in the can with Brian from Homestead Journey, so he'll be coming up soon for those listening. So I appreciate talking with him. He's got some good insight on his pig operation up there in New York. Excuse me. And of course, we've talked to Carl regularly, and in fact, we have another interview with him in the bag as well. So interesting. So you go to Carl, you get a Michon boar, and then you get some Berks. So I assume that's where you want to build your genetics. From your discussion and what you've researched, Scott, why do you want to combine those genetics?
Well, I did a ton of talking with Carl, and the Black Beauty breed that he's created, mm-hmm. I like the sound of it. I really like the Michons, and I'm probably going to go back to just straight Michons because I don't really like the Berks. They're a little high strung for me, mm-hmm. But that Black Beauty cross that he's created up there, I really like the looks of them and their meat quality. So that's kind of where I decided to go. I have some chef friends in the area and some roasting championship friends that I was hoping to get these pigs in the hands of. So I was looking for a good pig for that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like what you said there, and let's unpack that a little bit. So the Michon obviously is a very chill pig. So you've got your boar, you got him young as a piglet. I like what you did there with keeping him in the yard, interacting with him, so you have that close connection. He's used to you being around him. So you get the Berkshires in, and you notice they're a little more wound up. What specifically have you seen that's gives you a little consternation towards them?
Well, usually what I do is I put them on like what I did with the Michon, I put them on a little leash and walked him around the yard for a while. I kind of kept him in a kennel so I could make sure he, stayed safe, and then I would walk him around throughout the day, and then eventually he's let me pet him, and he doesn't need the leash anymore. With the Berkshires, it was 100% a fight all the time. They never relaxed. So I just kind of let them off the leash and kind of hoped they would come back and be friendly later. And right now, they'll let me pet them if they're eating, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's
they'll let me in the yard.
Yeah. Berkshire on a leash is like putting a cat on a leash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And obviously, it definitely illustrates the temperament of those 2 different breeds and what you're getting into there. So I'm getting into it. So the research, I do about 50% research before I pull the trigger. I don't have a whole lot of time to be reading so much, so I just kind of get in the area where I think I'm comfortable and pull the trigger. And with the Berkshires, I was only thinking about making the cross, and I wasn't looking at any of the temperament stuff associated with the breed. So I kind of fell on that one. Yeah, and it's funny. I think people would probably even people that are listening that are big Berkshire fans probably would be saying, "Wait a minute, now mine are not that worked up, or mine are okay." But I think it's a matter of perspective as well, because if you've been around a Michon, then you see how relaxed they are. So when I think of a Berkshire, I think they're kind of okay, but they're nothing like a Duroc. Duroc is crazy, and my Durocs used to knock me around all the time, and you're always leery to get in isolated with them. So it is an element of relativity, but yeah, I appreciate that perspective to say, well, yeah, I really like the temperament of the Michon. But I would be curious to see how your breeding is going to work out there. So what are the ages right now? When do you think you're going to have your first breeding attempt?
I'm thinking it'll be in January.
Okay.
So the Berks were born May 10th, in the summer. And then, so I'll be separating them from the Michon soon, so that they don't breed on their first cycle.
Yeah. I can.
So I'm thinking January is when our first breed attempt will be. So we'll have piglets in the springtime.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. All right. So you talked about acquiring these 9 acres that were horse farm, and of course, horse farm not set up very much at all for a pastured pig operation. But so what have you been doing for your pasture setup, and what are you dealing with there? Did you have some other than hard packed clay? Did you have some pristine pasture area there? Do you have any woodlot mix?
So I have about 6 acres of pecan trees.
Oh wow!
But that was the horse pasture, so it's all padded down, and there's some good grass in there. I have the horses wherever there was a cross fence dig at the bottom of it real bad. So it created these big trenches for water to go through, and just kind of had some erosion issues there. So the people we bought this from left a tractor here.
Oh, wow.
An old 1965 Ford 3000.
Oh, wow.
So they left some implements, so I was able to get on that thing and run the farrowing disc through the worst parts of it, and then I went back and planted ryegrass over it, and that's kind of the pig's job right now. They're getting that so I can plant some stuff in the spring.
Yeah,
I'm going to stay on that pasture probably until spring, and I'm going to try to plant some melon-type plants out there so they can have that when they rotate back through to eat.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. So when you bought the place, they left behind a functioning tractor for you and some implements. That's nice of them to leave that behind to help you get set up straight out of the gate.
Yeah, I was pretty pumped about it. I didn't think the thing would run. I just went and hooked my truck battery up to it, and it fired right up.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah, good deal. That's kind of like, I guess maybe they just decided, hey, we're done. We're walking away from it. We're not looking back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably, I have a disdain for horses. All you horse lovers out there are going to hate that, but I have a disdain for horses, so I can understand how a horse farmer would say, okay, I'm giving up. I'm just walking away.
I think they moved because of the Air Force. The military moved them.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah. So
I think they kept the horses with them, but the horses just trashed that back pasture.
Yeah. See, I'd
fix it.
I'd have kept the tractor and left the horses at the farm. So anyway, all right. So with this breeding, obviously, if you're going to breed in January and have a farrowing there, end of April, Mayish, what's your strategy going forward here? Is this just kind of a analyze and observe this first year? Are you going to sell these out as finishers? Or are you going to raise them all out for cuts? What's your thought on this first go round?
So I'm thinking I'm going to sell half the piglets, just as feeders to people that are local. That's kind of that's my goal right there, to get a little bit of cash for to make it through the summer and finish out all the other pigs. And then this first year, since I'm starting out, I'm going to be doing a lot of hey, I want you to try this pig. If you cover the processing fee and maybe a little bit of their feed cost, I'll give you a pig.
Yeah.
So you can use it in your restaurant attempts or whatever. That's kind of my first one. Family and friends and anybody else local. I've been talking to people all around town, and they love getting wild pork, or working on that just to get my name out there a little bit, but pretty much I'm going to keep it small the first year, just try to get it in the right hands so that I can have, customer reviews and people that say that this pig's good tasting, or if it's not, it's not. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping it's going to be good.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's good to kind of stick your toe in the water with different varieties of how to move those pigs, and just see how it shakes out. With breeding 2 gilts, if you have 2 successful farrowings, you could have 20 plus pigs. You could have 15 or less. You just don't know. So that's always that that caveat going in. It's like, okay, if we have this many, this is what we're planning to do. If we don't have that many, this is what we're planning. I've got had a guy reach out to me this week saying, "Hey, I'd like to buy 4 pigs off of you." I was like, "Well, I haven't even bred my sows again yet, so I'm not quite sure what to expect." So, but that's good. That gives you at least an idea.
These times are supposed to be extremely fertile, so there's no telling how many we get.
Oh yeah. I know. I've heard Carl talk about high teens on some of the stuff that he's put together there. So that could be some substantial litter sizes there. That'd be amazing to go from 3 pigs to have 30 plus in a day, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So let's come back and talk about your pecans or pecans. I guess it depends on where you're standing in the States. If my grandmother was here, she was British, she would say pecans. So how are you going to incorporate that into your rotation to where you can take advantage of all that protein and, of course, protect the trees at the same time?
Well, that ice storm took about 50% of the tree mass down out there.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I was real upset about it. There's limbs all over the place, but so we're going to see. They produced pretty good this year, and we have a bunch of pecans on the ground, and I still like watching the wildlife come in to eat them, so I'm fine with that for this year. But my guess is that'll be their. I'm hoping that I'm going to split the pecan pasture up into 3 spots, and then the melons and vegetables and stuff will be a 4th spot. Not 100% sure which order I'm going to go into, but I was hoping to finish kind of behind my house on acorns.
Yeah, okay.
Plus, that'll be right by where I'm going to be taking them out.
Yeah. So logistically looking
where
at,
I'd be wanting to load them.
Yeah. So having it close to your corral loading area there will be the pasture they finish on, which makes sense.
So that's kind of my thought. I know I have a pole barn and a pond, and that's going to be kind of their sacrificial area, and we'll just kind of do the whole rotate out through there with 4 different gates going to 4 different pastures.
Yeah. So how are you planning to manage water access if you bust up all these smaller pastures?
So the pond's kind of the central location.
Very good.
So I'm gonna just have 4 different gates going to 4 different pastures, and when they come in to eat, I'll close the gate and open it up for the other pasture when I want to move them.
Okay, so
my thought.
Yeah. So the pond's kind of like the hub of a wagon wheel.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. What's do you know the size of the pond roughly?
It's about a ½ acre.
Okay, that's a decent size. Yeah. And
a little bit bigger than I wanted because it fence it off, and that means I'm giving such a big area for them to be in at all times.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
there's no fish in it, so I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, and that's one of those things too. You can again observing to see how it goes when you have if you have a larger group of pigs in there, and you see that your pond bank is getting a little mangled up. Then the beauty of a pond that size, you could easily irrigate with some lift pumps out of that, and if it's at the central location, it wouldn't take much to provide water outside of the bank and clear that out if you need to.
Absolutely, that's one of my projects is getting power out there.
Yeah.
So that I can I have a sump pump or something like that I can run water from.
Yeah. So you had mentioned that you had to take down a lot of barbed wire from the horse, farm, which kind of surprises me. I guess to each his own. I've not known horse farmers to use that much barbed wire, but that's fun to work with. I've run into that same situation. We had a ton of barbed wire on our farm that we had to take down. So are you taking down, are you kind of keeping the same pasture areas defined or fence lines defined, or are you just going ahead and taking it down and redefining everything there?
So our exterior fence line I'm keeping, and that is almost more work than in running new fence. Because because they just let all the cedar trees go right up through the fence.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm running through with a chainsaw and trimming the sides of those off and running hog wire on the inside. And then in some cases, I know a lot of people frown on it. I'm nailing it right to the tree, just because that's the only way I can get this done unless I'm completely pulling the fence post out and sawing these trees down and rerunning fence posts. But
yeah,
I'm just doing a section at a time. We just got that second pasture up. We kind of, every paycheck, I run out and go get 2 rolls of wire and start working on it.
Yeah. So when you're saying...
I had one cross fence that I took out, and that was a pain, but I used the T-post for the rest of the other pasture, so...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very good. So when you say hog fence, or hog wire, what are you referring to there?
It's the 4-foot... it's not the welded wire,
it's the woven. Yeah, okay. So 4-foot woven?
Yeah, the woven wire.
Yeah. Well, that's substantial. That's a substantial investment when you run out some of that on a regular basis. 330 feet is usually a couple $100, at least in our neck of the woods is.
I get a roll for about $150 right now.
Okay, yeah. What are you incorporating the electric into that, or are you just going to have the woven keep them at bay?
So I really want the woven on the exterior.
Okay.
Now when I start the rotational, that's when I'm going to incorporate the electric.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds solid. Yeah.
Because I'm just real nervous about losing pigs. I don't want to have just an electric fence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're right by a road. There's coyotes all around, and I got 4 dogs that love to go everywhere they want to. When that barbed wire doesn't stop them at all, so I'm hoping that hog fence will keep everything in, and then I can put electric on the inside of that.
Yeah. I think that's a good move. That's a good combo. The welded will keep a lot of stuff from coming in, or the woven will keep a lot of things from coming in, and obviously deter the pigs as they get bigger. Of course, they can push things on it and get under it, but that one strand of electric will break them of that real quick. So no, I think that's a good plan, especially for perimeter fencing and keeping the stuff that wants to come in and molest your pigs at bay. Good. You mentioned something about tacking your fence directly to a tree, and that's, I think people can debate both ways. It's one of those things where you got to do what works for you at the time. You may come back a couple years later and maybe you say, oh man, I wish I hadn't done that, or maybe like, hey, that saved me a lot of time and saved me some money. But it's just one of those things, here in West Virginia with all these steep hills and forest, I find that there's times where, hey, it just makes sense to go ahead and run a line down the trees, especially if I choose trees that I know aren't going to be something I'm going to use later on the mill. Then it becomes a free fence post type of thing, and it ends up saving money and saves time in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, there's cedar trees right through the middle of this barbed wire fence, and I'm trying to use the T-posts that are already there to put my hog wire on. So the tree's there, and I need a post there, and it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yep, exactly. You go what works. Okay, so let's transition over to you talked about a sacrificial area that you're going to have here in the winter time. When it comes time for farrowing, what are you thinking as far as farrowing setup? Are you going to relegate them to a certain section? Are you going to do outdoor farrowing? Just let them go? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I had the previous owners had an extremely overbuilt chicken coop. It was railroad ties sunken into the ground, going vertical up, and 2x6s as a base, and then 1x4s on top. And so I spent about 3 days tearing that thing apart because I wanted to run a chicken tractor. So I tore that thing apart, and then I used that wood to make a little farrowing pen under the roof that was the roof of the chicken coop. Oh, yeah. And then I put some hog panels around it to keep them in there. And that's what I was using for the Berkshires the first night here on the farm. So I put some hay in there, and then, they're wild and they're running, and I was real nervous, so I went out to check on them, and they weren't in there. So I'm sitting there, I'm just sitting on the ground, mad at myself for losing 2 pigs. I just drove Arkansas to get. And then out of frustration, I walk over to this little pen I built them, and I kick the hay, and I accidentally kicked the pigs. I didn't realize they burrowed that deep in there. You can see them, so first night on the farm.
Yep, I know what that's like, man. You go around, you count pigs like I'm supposed to have 20 or 14 or whatever, and you're missing a couple, and you get spooked, and then you realize that they've tunneled down into something, they're hiding underneath something to stay warm. They're hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, so what about your feed? So when it comes time to you talked about some forage that you're going to have available for them. That's going to be some great supplement, finishing them on those acorns and pecans possibly. What's your feed strategy right now for your main source?
So we had them. It's all conventional. There's a local feed mill, a local feed store that sells their stuff, and building that relationship in the community is important. I think Oklahoma just started this whole Oklahoma bred, Oklahoma fed packaging you can put on your meat. And I really like the whole support local stuff, so I go down to the local feed store and pick up some conventional hog grower. And I was doing free feed out of the little dog feeders, and they started just going to town on that, and they were not rooting or doing anything like that. They were just eating all that conventional food. So I took them off of that, and I started doing, it's not fermented because I don't let it sit long enough, but I soak their food for about 12 hours and then give them a bowl in the morning and a bowl in the evening. And that's part of the whole regenerating that pasture. I threw some wood chips out there, and then I feed them on the wood chips, so they're constantly standing on them and mashing them into the ground.
Yeah, turning all that over. That's good. So if you have, it sounds like you mentioned clay base, and of course coming into the winter months, if you guys have the moisture like we do, then the wood chips and everything, they're going to turn that pretty quickly. So that should be something that could be ready for reseeding early in the spring.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move forward here. So you've talked about the possibilities of raising these pigs. Some you're going to sell as feeders, some you're going to finish out for cuts. What's the processing situation like in Oklahoma? I assume it's like what it is nationally right now, that there's a bit of a backlog. Have you started talking to processors yet and getting those relationships built?
I haven't. I know I should have. I think for the first year we're going to probably do everything in-house.
Okay.
That's just kind of my thought. My dad used to raise pigs when he was young, and I'll probably have him come out, and we'll just process it for the family. I mean, we're talking, I might have 4 pigs here that we'll keep for ourselves, but everything else I'll be giving to someone else.
Yeah, okay.
That's kind of my thought, and, I don't want to sink a whole bunch of money in this if the breeding's not right.
Right, yep.
I know some people have talked about too much fat in meat, and switching their breed lines to something a little bit leaner, and so it's kind of a toss-up to see what we're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, that's really going to be, and that's a good point to look at it, to not invest a bunch until you really figure out how this lines out. So, it won't be until, well, let's see if you fair with me. So it won't be until this time next year, maybe even a little later, where you're actually able to inspect the quality of the meat that you're getting and see what it looks like and make those assessments from there, I assume.
Yeah, we're going to test the roaster out.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sometime in there, so we'll get a little peek at it then.
Yeah.
And we'll just see how it goes from there.
Yeah.
My wife has told me we're not killing anything on the farm, so we have a little bit of a hurdle there. So I'm going to be selling most of my pigs, and they're going to get slaughtered, and they're just going to surprisingly end up in the freezer.
Yeah, I get you. I understand. Yeah. Well, that's an area that you all can navigate through easily and slowly, and just kind of discuss that through. Is that I can understand the sensitivity in that situation.
Yeah, she's coming. She started noticing the differences between store-bought meat, and it's kind of become a thing where she's like, this farm-to-table thing should be more important to us. So, talked to me about that yesterday, so it's just slowly moving that needle a little bit.
Yep. That's what you do. No heavy push, just kind of let it ride, and usually that stuff reveals itself. Like you say, when you tear into that roaster for the first time, or you sit down with a plate of pork chops or some homemade bacon, that usually is a very good convincing evidence.
Yeah, you had Out West Farms on a while back, and I actually ordered some meat from them, and you could really tell the difference.
Oh yeah. No, that's great, and that's where it all starts, man. And like you said, talking with friends and family, as you all become more aware, you make that awareness to others, and just becomes an educational thing. People's opinions start to change when they realize that, wow, okay, this whitish, pinkish looking pork chop that I can get at Walmart, or this pork chop that you put down that almost looks like a beefsteak because it's so red. That's kind of the first thing you see. People raise their eyebrows, say, well, this doesn't look like a pork chop, and because they're not used to that. So that's usually where that education starts.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited about it.
So you said something there that piqued my attention. Oklahoma's started an initiative where it's Oklahoma fed and Oklahoma raised. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact thing. It's like Oklahoma bred, Oklahoma raised, Oklahoma fed.
Oh, okay.
It's a special sticker you can put on your meat to sell in stores. And it's an initiative the governor put out to help our farmers. There's a lot of the whole foreign meat coming in the country. There's a whole issue behind that, and I think it's just their way of trying to help the local farmers out.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And I think that's something, my goodness, I think anything that we can do to underscore supporting local farmers and local food. I mean, COVID, if anything, has revealed the weaknesses we have in our big industrial ag process. So being able to underscore local, buying local, excuse me, is really going to help in that situation. So that's good. That's a good initiative. I'd like to see more states do that. Okay, so Scott, looking further down the road, so if you could pull out your pig crystal ball here and say, where do I want to be in 5 years? What's your thoughts on that with the 9 acres, whether your breed line works out one way or the other? What's 5 years down the road look like to you?
5 years down the road is less about the products and more about the roadmap to the products. And that's kind of where the Angry Vet Ag comes from. I think COVID highlighted a lot of issues within the veteran community that has kind of been overlooked because of everything else going on. And I saw a lot of vets kind of in pain. And then, I was getting into this homesteading thing, and they have a whole bunch of programs out there for veterans to do agricultural. But the information on it is lacking, or there's not a clear course of how to get there. So what I would like to be doing is bringing veterans here and teaching them how to set their farm up, get your licenses done, get your business up and running, how to garden, how to raise pigs, how to do all this other stuff, and then how to get access to those programs. And kind of that's kind of my focus for the farm, is to be more of a teaching farm for veterans specifically. And maybe if the pigs work out, I'll be selling them to high-end restaurants.
Yeah.
That would be a dream, but I'd really like to be teaching others.
Yeah, and that's great. And God bless you for that. First, thank you as a veteran for your service. But you really struck a nerve there that resonates with me. So we've seen, I have friends in the area. West Virginia has an inordinate amount of veterans. I like to think that we're a small state, but we have, I think, one of the highest percentages of residents that go into the military. And military is very close to my heart. I did not serve, unfortunately, but my dad and my grandfather both served. And you see these opportunities that are popping up that just really excites me, because I think we have boots to bees here in West Virginia, and maybe that's even broader. There's been an initiative to take some old strip mines and reclaim those for lavender production, because they actually are suited for that and of course these veterans initiatives that tie to that. So it's exciting to hear you talk about that as well. So from your perspective, what have you seen in Oklahoma? Are there specific initiatives that you're seeing that are helping vets when it comes to ag, or is this something you're going to have to kind of pioneer on your own?
I've seen a couple things. I missed the timing on all the federal grants and local state grants. And it's just, I don't know who does their marketing, but it's really hard to find information on it.
Right.
And that's kind of what I wanted to do, is be a little bit more boisterous about all the programs that are out there. And, there's nothing better than a little bit of dirt therapy. Get out and come out to the farm and do some work, learn something. And, it quiets the mind a little bit. So, I've looked a little bit into the initiatives here in Oklahoma, and like I said, the information is minimal, and there's not a clear, set process of how to do certain projects. But they do have internships for veterans to help them learn about agriculture, but that's more of go to someone else's farm and learn that. And that doesn't really suit me, so I was looking more for, the grants and the education. I think the education would be the biggest part. Like I said, they just don't talk about it enough. They're not vocal on what's out there.
Yeah, and I think you definitely have an opportunity there to be a knowledge base, to be an information liaison between the veterans and the government entities. Like you say, I think that's, for some reason, that's the standard for most government agencies, is do a terrible job of displaying their information and actually marketing their services. But I think that could definitely fill a void there, where people could come to you and you've been trained and you've got enough experience to say, yeah, here's all the things offered by Oklahoma, here's all the things offered federally, and then here's even nonprofit third-party type opportunities for grants associated with veterans. That would be a useful, very useful tool.
That's the plan, and another one of my goals is I love listening to podcasts, but I'm not much of a YouTube watcher because I can't sit still for 5 minutes.
Gotcha.
So that's the other thing, is I want to kind of pack all this information in a 5-minute video. Each thing, you go to YouTube and you type in how to raise chickens, and then there's a 30-minute video, and then the answer's right at the end.
Yeah. Yep, that's for sure.
So I'd like to have it just as quick as I can, answer your question and tell you how I do it. And, I have done some screw-ups on the farm, and I'm hoping that through my screw-ups I'll learn, and then I can teach others how to do it without screwing up.
Yeah, good deal. All right, well, Scott, a question I ask everyone that comes on the podcast, and you're not going to be any different. You can't escape this. What is your best experience or favorite part about raising pigs on pasture so far?
My favorite part is that Michon boar. His name is Oink, and he is just a character. He was, before we got the Berkshires, he was just a dog.
Yeah.
He would wrestle with the dogs, and he'd come running up to you with his ears flopping in the breeze, and that's just the coolest thing, to have a cute little floppy-eared pig running around the farm, doing his thing and playing with the dogs, and that's it right there. I love watching that pig run around and have fun and dance and sprint with the dogs. And then the other thing I really like is listening to them eat celery or carrots.
Yeah.
Such a satisfying crunch.
Right. Yeah.
It's great to be able to sit out there and just hang out with them while they're chowing down. That's it. I love it.
That's good stuff, man. Yeah, it sounds like your Michon boar is set up for a very, very good life. He'll sounds like he'll be a farm staple for a while there.
He's definitely a pet.
Yeah, that happens from time to time for sure. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. If people want to find out more about your operation right now, you do have some social media set up, correct?
Yeah, I have Facebook and Instagram, Angry Vet Ag. That's about it. No website yet.
Okay.
Not that technologically advanced.
I got you. Well, that'll come in time. All right. So yeah, I'll post some information down in the show notes there where you guys can check him out. And man, you'll have to keep me up to date on how that's going out. Maybe we'll circle back around next year and see how your breeding worked out and what your takeaway was from it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
All right. Well, man, I pray you have a great holiday week. You get to spend some quality time out in the pasture. Take care, Scott. Well, I enjoyed that conversation with Scott. Hope you all did too. Again, it's nice to see this veteran initiative really take off, and love to see more of that happen. So we may have to circle back around with Scott maybe a year or so down the road, Lord willing, and just see how things have worked out for him. Well, as I'm recording these bumpers for this specific interview, it is a couple days before Christmas, so I would be remiss if I didn't wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's. Hopefully 2021 will be less craptastic than 2020, and I pray that we can all have a profitable year and that we could have some good experiences and some expansion in our pig operations. Well, as usual, if you all know of anyone that would need to be on the podcast, you'd want to be on the podcast yourself, specific topics we need to address, I would love to get schedules loaded up for first quarter of 2021 to keep this ball rolling. So by all means, if you're listening to this over the holiday week and you want to pontificate on some upcoming topics, then by all means drop me a note. Troy@redtoolhouse.com would be the easiest way to email me. Or if you actually want to put in the request for an interview, then just go to redtoolhouse.com, go to the Pastured Pig podcast link, and you will see a very simple contact form, just a couple easy questions, and it helps me figure out who I'm going to talk to and some of the background there. And that would be great. Well, that's going to wrap it up, and we'll talk to you guys on the next one. Take care.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.